Welcome to Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. My name is Paul Delegro, your host today, and my guest today is George Finney, the CISO for Southern Methodist University. I had to spell that out for the non-Dallas residents here in Dallas, Texas. Welcome to the show, George.
Howdy, y'all. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. So, you know, before I have guests on, I do a little research into them, and I need a piece of paper to look at read all your accomplishments here. So, in addition to being a CISO at SMU, you're also a professor. You're an author, you're a consultant, you're also a podcaster, so you're in our community as well, and you're a lawyer, which, my first thought was, okay, what do you do in your free time, George? Because I don't know, you've got a pretty busy schedule here, so.
I'm a Renaissance man. One of the things I do in my spare time, actually, is I spray paint pop art robots. So
really?
I've got like a whole series. I'm up to like 10 now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, having that creative outlet, my brain goes a little crazy with all the stuff I'm doing. So I just have to add more to stay sane.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It does make sense, actually. My daughter, I think I mentioned, my daughter, Gabriella, goes to SMU, and she's going into her senior year, electrical engineering major, and she's an artist and a musician as well. For that reason, it's just an outlet for her. She plays the piano and she's an artist. So just, again, you can't be so one-dimensional that that's all you do, right?
I had this experience. So what they don't tell you in law school, when you have to take the bar exam, it's too late to quit law school. But you have to stuff the same amount that you would have studied in a year of law school into 2 months to prepare for the bar exam. And man, I had this surreal out-of-body experience where I was so beat down from like working full-time during the day, then trying to study at night, that my brain kept coming up with like new business ideas. Like I dreamt up the idea for I guess fusion restaurants were big at the time, and I had this idea for a Cajun Mexican fusion restaurant, and I wanted to like I had to fully come up with the whole menu before I could move on to start studying again. And I called it refried jambalaya.
Yeah.
And yeah, like crawfish enchiladas, like the whole thing.
Yeah. You need to defrag, right? You need to back away from something, because I know sometimes if I'm trying to work through a problem, I'll just put it down and wake up the next day and and something will come to my mind. Like you just need to kind of hit the reset button sometimes.
Totally.
Cool. Well, George, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today, you are an author, and you wrote a book called Well Aware, Master the 9 Cybersecurity Habits to Protect Your Future. I'm not going to lie to you. When I first picked up the book, I'm like, okay, this is going to be another book about you need a firewall, and you need email security, and you need DPL, and I figured it'd be another boring cybersecurity book, but it really wasn't. And what impressed me the most is you really focus on the psychology of cybersecurity and how to get employees at a company to really buy into the whole process and make them feel part of the process, versus this wasn't a book about nuts and bolts, right? It was more the psychology of the whole cybersecurity. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit? So
I wanted to write a book. I was really inspired by folks like Malcolm Gladwell, who take these crazy complicated subjects and make them simple, but they also tell stories along the way that are engaging and kind of keep you on the edge of your seat.
Sure.
And I also shamelessly wanted to steal like Stephen Covey's idea of the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Right.
And so I had this concept of I think there are 9 cybersecurity habits. But I didn't want to, just write a book about, George's experience, which, lots of folks out there have written cybersecurity memoirs, about, all of their exploits, and that's cool.
Yeah, there's a million of them out there, as you know.
But, so what I did is actually, I isolated the habits, and then kind of also like Covey, I told the stories of successful leaders, not just in cybersecurity, but all across the board, to talk about how they made a difference in keeping their companies secure. Because we do a bad job. We play the cards a little close to our vest in security, where we don't like to tell the stories. I interviewed a ton of folks for the book that just couldn't go on record, right?
Sure.
They were protected by NDAs, or they had to run their stories through their PR departments and their PR. Rightly so. They didn't want to paint a target on their backs.
Right.
No pun intended for the for Target itself, but so it just worked out where I got to tell the stories of cool people like the CEO of the Girl Scouts. who started their cybersecurity merit badge program. But that was such a great example of the habit of literacy,
Right.
and how to teach security in a way that doesn't use fear and scariness, because people shut down, and you've got to kind of open that up and inspire people instead. So yeah, just such a fun project to work on. It took 3 years. But,
I was going to say, you obviously, having read the book, you did a lot of research. You had a lot of interviews. This wasn't like just you sitting down and taking some notes. I mean, there's a lot of detail in this book that I really appreciate. So you do have 9 habits. But the one thing I want to touch on, and I think this, any one of us in technology sales kind of knows this anyway, but humans are the biggest threat vector, correct? Like, gaining access into your environment is usually done by like a spoofing or phishing. Kind of talk about that a little bit and kind of educate. For the people in technology, they kind of know what it is, but for our non-technology folks out there, explain what that is.
So first, I will say I'm glad you phrased it the way you did, because it's a pet peeve of mine to hear people say, people are the weakest link.
Yeah.
It's like the TV show, you are the weakest link.
Yeah.
Goodbye, right?
You're fired.
No, don't yeah, exactly. And we have this mindset of, yeah, if you click on a phishing link, you should be fired and walked out the door.
Yeah.
And I think there's a whole separate model out there, right? And first, humans are the weakest link is factually incorrect. We are the biggest attack surface,
sure.
Certainly. But that leaves people in a vacuum, right? So, in security, we talk about people, processes, and technology. Those
yes.
are the 3 aspects of security. But when we make a list of 3 things, you kind of make the assumption that that's like 3 equal slices of a pie.
Yeah.
And actually, people are the ones that create the technology. They're the ones that configure the technology and use it. People are the ones that create the processes and follow the processes. So really, like it's a people pie,
right.
with those other things sprinkled in. But really, right? So you get back to people. We're 100% a part of the process. So it's not surprising, when you hear the statistic, human error accounts for 98% of all data breaches. Well, actually, probably it's more like 100%,
yeah.
right? Because people are involved in every aspect, and the only way we're going to improve is if we focus on people and find a way to inspire them to do and work differently.
Yeah, you had actually talked a lot about that in the book, about how to make it an inclusive process where people aren't intimidated and you're not shaming people. I mean, I know enough about technology. I tell my family members, for anyone who listen, never click on a link in an email. If you get an email from your bank, go to the website, because it can look identical to your bank, with maybe one little character separate from that. And that's normal. You're working during the day, you're a student at SMU, and it's only, you can't be on guard all the time. But I think you said you had a process where you make it inclusive, try to educate the folks without having it be some boring, lunch and learn, not lunch and learn, but some requirement from the students. Talk about that a little bit.
So, I had this experience a few years ago, and I've got, I think, really good relationships with the folks I work with. But one particular individual, she's kind of a firecracker, right? And it doesn't take stuff from anybody. So there was an issue in her area. I had to call her up and get her help to fix it. But she kind of circled back around to me afterwards and said, George, like, I was stressed out. Like,
yeah.
I was kind of scared when just the tone of my voice changed, and that had an impact on how they react. And we worked through the issue. It wasn't a huge deal. But I took away from that, I've got to manage every aspect of how I connect with other people to make sure that they don't feel like they're in trouble, that they don't feel scared. They have to feel confident that when George is in the room, I think of myself like Harvey Keitel in Reservoir Dogs, right? Oh, or Pulp Fiction. You brought in the wolf, right? Everybody's cool now. Okay, like yeah. We're good. We got George in the room. They should feel good about that and know that the next steps are going to be taken, because if the opposite is true, right? If they don't feel comfortable with you in the room, they're going to work around you, right? They're going to find ways to solve their problems or hide their problems so that they don't get fixed. And you hear so many stories of people in my role, pounding their fist on the table, saying, no, you can't do that. That's got to change. And I think it is changing.
No, I can honestly tell you, some of our customers that I've been in meetings where this subject has come up, like, John Doe has done this 3 or 4 times, and they're talking about firing him. We're going to warn him if he does it again. And I often thought, like, here's a guy just doing his job. I mean, he's not trying to do anything bad to the company, but someone sends him an email, he doesn't think about it, boom, he clicks.
And I hear that over and over again. Like, we call those people repeat offenders.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, that's kind of a derogatory term, but it doesn't take into account what their workload is like, what their culture, right? I've heard of cases where their boss created a culture where you have to respond within 5 minutes and close a ticket within a certain period of time, and that kind of culture forces people to act without thinking. So I think you've got to look at the big picture and take into account, hey, people are, have they're going to try and fit in.
Yeah.
And we've got to look at those bigger issues. And again, make it approachable. There's this great story at IBM where Tom Watson was in charge, and some guy made a multi-million-dollar error, and the guy went into Watson's office fully expecting to be fired, right? And that's the position we're in. And Watson's response, oh my God, why would I fire you? I just spent $10 million educating you. You're not going to make that mistake again, right? And so, okay, cool. I think after somebody clicks on a phishing message, or they're involved in a some sort of incidental disclosure or breach, right? To go through that process, certainly some people need to be held accountable, especially for negligence.
Yeah.
I can't say that you should never fire someone.
Yeah, I know you're saying. Sure.
But oh my gosh, that's the best opportunity we have for helping people grow.
Yeah.
And if you're letting those people go, then somebody else is taking advantage of their learning opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wasted opportunity for organizations.
No, I agree. I know in the book you talked about what you do at SMU, where you don't want to let your people think you're spying on them and trying to trick them, but you do kind of give them a little forewarning that, hey, we're going to be running some fake phishing exercises here over the next few weeks, just to see how, so they feel like they're part of the process.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean, I will first say, whenever I sit down in a meeting, particularly with faculty, I like to kind of jokingly introduce myself as, "Hi, I'm Big Brother."
Yeah.
Just to get that on the table, right? Because they're going to be saying that in the background. Oh, that George is a big, he's watching everything we do. He's reading our email or whatever. And actually, I don't do that, right? And we have processes in place, and we want to open the door to those conversations. We don't want to close them down. So bringing it up, I think, helps people. But yeah, I've had this debate about simulated phishing for years, and I've professionally sent probably 25,000 simulated phishing messages. And what I've learned over that period of time, people hate it. People don't like feeling victimized. But if you partner with them, right, and part of that is, hey, I'm going to give you a heads up. A couple weeks in advance, right? You're on notice. We can kind of say after the fact, well, you should have been watching. Well, and again, we don't want to make it, just CYA, you should have been doing it. But, we also have rules for how we write phishing emails, right? We don't want to make them too good, because you could fool anybody.
Right.
I mean, I could be fooled by a simulated phishing message or a real one. So that's not the point. The point is to create learning opportunities, to create opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I mean,
and some awareness too, right? That.
Yeah. I mean, we know that. I guess I worry that people are getting a false sense of security, because we do a fairly good job of blocking the spam and phishing that gets to your mailbox, and some will slip through. And we know that we're never going to get to like a 0% click-through rate. But if we can create opportunities for like reporting, where people tell us when they see a phishing message, we can go back and help pull those phishing messages out of mailboxes. We can block those websites. So again, it's not just about the awareness. It's about building a culture that protects one another.
Yeah, no, you touched on a good point. If you can get people to recognize one and then let you know, that's just another website you can block.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's cool. So George, I know that you developed a cybersecurity profile test, which I took, by the way, and I'm a believer, whatever category that means. So a couple things. Why did you develop the test, and what does it actually tell us?
Yeah, so one of the first questions that I always get about the 9 habits is like, okay, that's a lot of habits. Where do I start? Where do I begin?
Yeah.
And really, what the test is designed to do is it helps you identify your top 2 strengths when it comes to the 9 habits. And that's where I want you to start, right? And security's scary, it's super technical. The quiz itself isn't technical,
right?
And what it's really helping you do is to build that identity around, oh my gosh, I can actually contribute to security. I have a role to play, and I think there are no small roles when it comes to security. So for a believer, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the Monkees song. I'm a believer. Right. But your top 2 strengths there are literacy and culture, right? And both of those things are so critical. For an organization to know what's out there, to know what you should be doing, and to help kind of create that group, feeling of, yeah, we all believe in this together. Yeah. For me, I'm an explorer, which means that I have high diligence and high vigilance. So both of those together, so it totally explains my personality.
Yeah, and plus you are a CISO, so I would think you'd have to be diligent in your role, right?
You do, and I think there are, there's not necessarily one profile or persona that CISOs will all fit into. I've seen lots of different ones have different personality types, but once we get into the we're beta testing now for the assessment, but once we get enough responses, I'd love to be able to say, the top 3 personality profiles for CISOs are explorers, believers, and detectives or whatever. Same for CFOs or CEOs. But for me, if it was interesting to take the assessment because I kind of know who I am. But thinking back, like, wow, you can call me Curious George, but right, I wouldn't have written the books that I've done or gone to law school and do these other things if I weren't an explorer, right? I'm always out there looking for the next thing, looking for patterns, being interested in different things, right? And the earlier I would have known that about myself, the more I can direct my career. So I think it's really great for both, general awareness to help folks feel like they can be a part of security and to know how to get started in building those habits. At the same time, I think it's great for new people coming into security to help them find the right path and where they're gonna really thrive.
Yeah, I mean, after I took the test and read your book, I think that my thoughts have changed on security. I was kind of like the old school, just put some stuff in, hold people accountable. But I think including them as part of the process is really going to be crucial going forward.
Absolutely. You gave the example earlier of, okay, I always will call my bank or my credit card company back directly if I get the phone call for them, or I'll always go to their website if I get an email or text. That's a habit,
right?
Okay, so how do you build those habits? We know from psychology there's a habit loop, right? There's the prompt or the cue that gets you to do the behavior. There's the behavior itself, and then there's some sort of reward on the back end that releases dopamine that tricks your brain into doing that loop again. And so if that your strength is culture. Okay, cool. Let's develop some habit recipes to get you kickstarted on focusing on that strength. And we I've had the privilege of working with a couple of executive coaches in my career, and the best ones will help you focus on your strengths. because that's how you grow, right? That's how you you build on your unique set of skills, is to focus on those rather than like papering over your weaknesses. And oh, by the way, you're a part of a team, so if you can do the assessment for a whole team, right? You want to build a team that has the right strengths to do whatever it is you're working on, whether it's a project, whether you're in operations, whether you're in sales, and protecting customer lists or protecting customer data. There are lots of ways to accomplish that. And I think all of us working together, there's no one right way to do security. So working together as a team, knowing what our strengths are when it comes to security, oh my gosh, I think that gets us so much further down the road. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, you've really kind of opened my eyes with this book to think a little differently. Matter of fact, I'm going to kind of recommend this book to my team. Dude, right on. Thank you. I think it's, again, because I've been in so many of those meetings where everyone's pointing fingers. Right. And that never works. Right. The blame game never. I've always said the blaming people never works. And I catch myself doing this still, even after writing the book. Right. Yeah. Oh, this, so-and-so, they just don't like, quote unquote, get security. Yeah. And I find myself checking it and I'm like, wait a minute, like maybe they just have a different experience. Because I really believe everyone, every human being natively understands security. I say this in the book that security is in your DNA, right? We've evolved as a species. Yeah, we put locks on our houses, lock our cars. I mean, the whole reason we come together as a culture, as a civilization, is for mutual protection. Yeah. Right. So everybody this is why see something, say something works, right? We all want to contribute, but we have different ways of contributing. We have different strengths. Sure. And, it's not that any one person doesn't get security, doesn't care about security. It's that they have a different, perspective. They've got a different life story when it comes to that. And I think if we can connect with those stories, that's how we can all collaborate and work together most effectively. Yeah, no, I completely agree. So another thing I noticed is you have your own well-aware security company. If I say consulting company. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. What's going on with that? So Well-Aware Security, you can go to the website. You can take the free assessment. I do keynote speeches across the country and for different organizations. So I can also come in and help do consulting, right? I can do that team assessment we talked about. So, sure. Everyone can go, look at their own, personality profiles and kind of help kickstart that process. But when you want to collaborate together with a team, it's really impactful to know where everyone's strengths are and to kind of help align those strengths around the projects you're working on, whatever goals or outcomes you've got for the year. We can start to work with you to build those skills, to give you the habit recipes that are going to be most impactful for whatever your journey is. And it's cool working in higher ed. Higher ed is kind of set up to let individuals have their own intellectual property rights. So faculty can go teach at other universities and take their courses with them. And I've benefited from that. Because that's just the expectation. Too. You're
exactly. Yeah. Professor as well, right?
I've taught the intro to cybersecurity course a few times in our engineering school, and man, I just have I think there's nothing more impactful you can do in your career than teaching others, right? Yeah. The first time that a student came into my office and said, "George, I'm going into cybersecurity as a career because of your class."
Like, oh, that's awesome.
There's nothing I've ever done, as a CISO or as an engineer, as a lawyer that's ever made that big of an impact.
You had an impact on something. That must be exciting, though. You're you're grinding every day as a CISO, and to walk into the classroom once in a while must be refreshing, I would think.
It really is, and I'm so lucky. I actually get to be on campus every day. So in most organizations, you don't necessarily see your customers. Yeah. The people you're working with or helping. Because it's remote, it's Zoom. Maybe you only have meetings with clients over dinner or happy hours occasionally. For me, I get to walk out my door and see the students every day, and that's just magical.
Yeah, awesome. So, for all the folks out there that are in your position or are struggling with their cybersecurity environment, what advice would you give them, kind of just as a first pass? I mean, what steps would you recommend they take today?
Oh my gosh! I mean,
I know there's a million of them, but we see this a lot with our customers. They realize they have a deficiency, and they really, quite honestly, don't know what to do.
So, I mean, the first step that I would give anyone isn't a technology step.
Yeah.
You know, it's you need to know what devices you have, what data you have, what software you have. We you know, and what potential risks could be connected with those. So we call that building an inventory or building a risk register. But you have to know where your data is in order to protect it, and that takes some soul searching, right? I kind of intuitively know where my quote unquote crown jewels are, and we protect them. But one of the things we forget is that I think people are the crown that makes up the crown jewels, and we need to focus on those as a part of that as well. So you need to know the people, just like you would need to know your inventory of software and devices, and from there, okay, cool, you can go do things like patching, you can get modern antivirus or all those other technical things. But if you're not starting with that inventory, whatever protections you apply are probably going to be incomplete if you're not applying them everywhere.
Cool. Well, hey, George, if someone wanted to get in touch with you or go to your website, how would they do that? Give us a little bit of information out you to help the folks out there.
Yeah, so if you want to go and take the free personality test, it's on my website, www.wellawaresecurity.com.
Pretty straightforward.
So really easy there. Happy to connect with folks on LinkedIn. Just plop in a note that says you saw me on this podcast. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at WellAwareSecure. Love connecting with folks, talking to people. Love to reach out and talk to you.
Yeah, and your fellow podcaster too. So what's the name of your podcast?
The Well Aware Security Show.
Okay, awesome.
So we've got a nice jazzy jingle that kicks us off for every episode. I found an Argentine jazz singer who did the song, and man, it's been a cool show. We've got lots of security guests, but we're going to be branching out to other traditional security folks to talk about their journeys with security, right? Because security impacts everyone, and everyone's making a difference, right? So I want to be able to recognize CFOs or attorneys or just regular end users that have their interesting stories, and I want to help tell those stories so that we can again get rid of this idea that security is just for security people. Anyone can make a difference in security.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway I got from the book, is that it's not just the guy sitting in the room, coming up with the security practices. It's everybody.
Absolutely.
Everyone's got to be part of it. So I learned something from your book. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much. That really means a lot. I know, I'm the sime way, right? Some books I'm kind of like skeptical about, and then when I read them, they kind of blow my mind. And those are the favorite reads that I read.
Yeah, definitely. I was surprised, so I enjoyed it. But any final words of wisdom for the folks out there?
Security is in your DNA. Security is a team sport, and we all have our roles to play.
Awesome. Well, George, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it. And that's a wrap for Business Brains and the Bottom Line. Until next time.